Hello!
Let's go!
And welcome to another wonderful episode of
Cam Daddy
I
and
Don't
Callum.
Wanna,
Oh. Alan Pilot,
the podcast.
episode number
Not a clue.
Neon
Plus
Genesis
one.
Evangelion +1.
Yes.
There you
go. I'm Callum McCready.
And I'm Cameron Lewis,
Since
also
birth.
known as...
Guzzler.
Why am I a guzzler?
you just are.
Okay, Ken. Callum, what episode are we talking about today on I Don't Want to Pilot the podcast?
Well, Cameron, thank you for asking.
God, no problem, anytime. Going faster.
My rage. We are talking about the legendary new show that Netflix has just released this week.
That I had to suffer through.
Well, it'll actually be last week, not when this was released. Actually, it'll be 2 weeks ago.
Who's going to say it, me or you?
Bubble!
That's pretty good. It's a really good film if you don't enjoy anything.
Yeah. If you just want to sit there and waste 2 hours.
That movie actually felt like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
It felt so long.
So we basically already started off by saying we hated it.
No.
You can now tune out if you... No, okay, so we'll briefly break it down because you actually might enjoy it. You might be brain dead enough to actually enjoy this sort of thing. So we'll break it down for you.
How do you even summarise the plot?
Nothing happens until the last 20 minutes. Okay. Well, we'll try and break it down.
Okay.
Okay, so it starts raining bubbles all around the world.
I don't know, looking at me, I generally don't laugh.
Okay, then some jackass on the Tokyo Tower, who's autistic, by the way. We'll explain this guy's character arc.
You really shouldn't have just said that out of
starts off
context.
with autism. Okay.
And then he gets cured.
And then by the end of it, he doesn't have autism.
His literal
his headphones fell off.
His literal character arc is that the only character or backstory that they give him is that he has autism. And then halfway through the film, he loses his headphones and no longer suffers from those effects anymore.
Yeah.
And that's his character arc is that he overcame a mental disorder.
That's not us being disrespectful. That is genuinely the whole character development. That's the only piece of character.
He has no personality or anything. That is literally it.
So anyway, starts off this jackass.
He's not a jackass. He's just a kid. He didn't know what he was doing.
Jackass. So he put some bubbles are falling all around the world, like raining down. He points at a bubble. The bubble flies towards him. But you don't find this out till later, so that's technically a spoiler. And then there's a big explosion, and all the bubbles around the world are summoned to Tokyo. And Tokyo's put inside a giant bubble, and all these bubbles are raining down in Tokyo.
Have you ever seen the Simpsons movie? You can get a good depiction of what's happened.
So then everyone sort of evacuates Tokyo, and when these bubbles burst, it generates like loads of water, and Tokyo floods, and basically the whole city's abandoned. But some kids and stuff...
It is not abandoned.
Well, no, it is, but then a load of kids and stuff go in. A load of like kids that are like orphans or something, I don't really know.
They don't explain it.
They go and live in Tokyo, this destroyed Tokyo, and they do this thing called like Battlecore.
It's Battlecore.
Battlecore. It's parkour around like the destroyed city where they have to go and get a flag.
It's a parkour game that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so they have to parkour. They're in 2 teams of 5, and they have to and they bet like rations and stuff. So whatever rations they've got, and they have to parkour around the city, and it's a race to get the flag first.
It's 5v5s, but they never explain why it's a 5v5 and not a 1v1.
Or even just a 2v2, because there's sometimes where they like boost the other person, but
you
need to have 5 people to do that. But yeah, so they do this Battlecore or whatever, and that's the whole premise of the show. That's like the main thing, until it isn't. So there's this team that look kind of evil, and you're like, oh my gosh. Antagonists.
They're called the Undertakers,
yeah,
so you know that they're
dressed
evil.
in black, so you know they're evil. Well, then it turns out that all they did was get some high-tech equipment and do Battlecore using that, which you're like, well, that's not very evil of them. That's just sort of standard in it.
So the really intelligent writer who also wrote Death Note, which confuses me because I don't know how he can go from something so intellectual to something like this.
Yeah, it's so bad. Basically, they realised that these antagonists weren't evil enough. So they thought, let's make them do something pointlessly evil. We can't say it because it's technically a spoiler, but it literally, they did it, and I just went, okay.
No, they did it, they get defeated, obviously, it's, you know. So they get defeated, and then it's never elaborated for the rest of the movie. It is complete filler and pointless. It feels like you're watching a filler episode in a movie.
Yeah. Oh, we missed like the whole premise of the film. Basically, there's a
Did
bubble.
we?
The bubble that
Oh
goes to the guy
no.
in the tower. When he goes back to the tower, because he's for some reason just this god at parkour for some reason. Because he can hear things better. I
Well,
don't know.
we'll get to the parkour
Yeah.
in a minute because it's so
He
stupid.
basically goes back to the tower, and this sentient bubble turns into a girl and saves him, called Yuta, and she is in love with him. And then they do foreshadowing. But the foreshadowing turns out to be the plot, but it isn't foreshadowing. They
It's
explain
exposition.
the plot like within the first 20 minutes of the film,
The first whole,
and then the plot is the plot that they explained.
the first hour of the movie is them giving exposition on what happened in the past and what could happen in the future. So you know what's going to happen, and then when it happens, you're like, wait.
Yeah, it's literally they tell the story of the Little Mermaid, but not the real story of the Little Mermaid.
The
They
plot
tell-
story.
They tell the story that happens in this film, and literally they say it, and they're like, "Oh yeah, she wants to be with. She sees the prince, and it literally pans to main dude, and
And Yuta calls him
yeah,
Prince.
yeah, and then it's like, and then she like sacrifices herself to be with him, and then dies or something like that. This isn't a spoiler. This is what they say within the first 20 minutes of the film, and then that literally you're like, oh well, the similarities are uncanny, and it just ruined the whole film because I knew what was going to happen at the end.
The
Although I didn't
romance.
expect the bit with all the big bubbles. Well, that's not a spoiler because the whole thing's about bubbles.
The whole romance is really, really bad. Main dude hasn't got a personality. Yuta hasn't got a personality. They have no chemistry whatsoever.
Madly in love.
We didn't talk about anything the whole
No,
movie.
She sees him water his plants, and she's like, damn.
That's not a personality. It's a hobby. It's barely one of that. He does it once in the whole movie, and it's never once brought up again that he does this.
Oh, I need to tell you something really important about the film. Spiral. I still never got the relevance of that. They talk about spirals for the
No.
whole film as if it's supposed to be
No,
important.
really good movies have imagery, but this is not a good movie. So they tell you what the imagery is, and then they keep using the imagery throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, they're like spirals. Spiral.
Spiraling into a dark descent.
I'm like, okay. I can see there's a spiral there. You didn't need to tell me there's a spiral there.
Spiraling into a deep depression from watching the movie.
Yeah, it was a really, really bad movie.
It's the worst film I've ever seen.
It was a Netflix original.
So that sums it up.
That basically was already a red flag. This is going to be the shortest episode ever. Genuinely, really disliked the movie. Because there's films I've watched before that I've disliked, but they've had, sort of like, they've had some form of plot and guidance to it. This had nothing. It literally was just some stuff happens, barely.
No.
It was a slice. It had.
I told you.
Life without being a slice of life.
Basically, the movie is nothing happens and then everything happens.
Yeah.
It's in like one go.
It's about parkour, then it's not about parkour, then it's a girl made of bubbles with some bubbles in the air, and then it's not about her, there's a bit about parkour again, and then some like big dramatic ending happens, but it makes no sense in the film, so I didn't
The movie just spoon feeds you the whole way. There's these bubbles towards the end, yeah, and you know that they're evil because they're red bubbles.
And the guy goes, watch out for the red bubbles, they're evil.
Okay, we can talk about the animation. Basically, they went for this unique art style in order to animate the movie, and you think that's pretty cool. But all they did was animate the movie, but at like 4 frames a second, and so everything looks really poorly and unfinished. Doesn't look good. Nothing. Get the parkour. They do unnecessary flips 24/7.
Yeah, the parkour is quite frustrating because literally they're trying to race, and he'll be stood on like a box about this high off the floor. And rather than just running and then jumping onto the wall, he'll do a side flip, back flip, front flip, and run. That's a waste of about 30 seconds.
There are some good bits, like when the camera like pans around the person as they're doing a flip. That's usually pretty good, but they're so few and far between, and 90% of it's just let's do a mega quadruple backflip in order to get from like one pebble to another pebble.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. I can understand visually, it's quite good to watch, but it makes no sense in the whole thing, and the whole plot then doesn't tie in together with itself.
And it's just full of forced imagery, which is never like it always tells you what the imagery's meant to be, so you're like, okay.
Yeah, there was no like.
There's no like cleverness.
There was no tension or predictions that you could make because it literally starts off spoon feeding you with here's the exposition for the past 5 years. Here's the exposition for the next 5 years. Here's how the film is going to end. And you're 20 minutes in. So then all that's left is to watch them do some parkour for a bit and wait for the climax. That wasn't a climax.
Also, there's that one bit where main girl loses a ligament. And everyone sees that she loses this ligament. And no one says anything to her.
Because she's made of bubbles. And if she touches main dude, she turns into bubbles wherever she makes contact.
Why does that happen? We don't know.
We don't know. It doesn't explain. So there's one bit where he grabs her and throws her up to get the flag to win the game. And that arm that he throws her with turns into bubbles. So she misses an arm. Main dude climbs up, sees this, goes, "Are you okay?" She goes, "Yeah, I'm fine." And he goes, "Okay." She's literally missing an arm. And none of them realise that she's made of bubbles or whatever. She just loses an arm. They're like, "Oh, okay." Then they all have a party. So they all come up and congratulate her and whatever. Shake a hand. Which one? There's only one left. And they all have a big party. And no one seems to bring up the fact that one of her arms is literally missing. At all. It's like earlier, one of her hands starts to turn into bubbles because she touches main dude. Their response to her literally turning into bubbles was to give her a glove.
And only one glove, not like two.
Yeah, because if they'd given her two, it would have saved her from her arm being ripped off.
Well, the whole reason why they only give one thing and why she's like dies when she touches someone is because the ending wouldn't have been sad otherwise.
Yeah, no, that's true. It wasn't really that sad.
Also, the product placement in the movie.
Oh.
It's like a good. Every movie has product placement, but good movies are so good to put that in masks it. But there's literally one scene where they pan to a table just full of Coke, Sprite, Fanta, Dr Pepper, like everything, and it's just so in your face.
I was thinking because I saw those product placement, and I was like, "Oh, well, I haven't seen any. I'll keep my eye out." Didn't need to keep my eye out. There's one scene where they party, and everyone is either holding a Fanta, Sprite, or Coke, or Dr Pepper, and it's really clear. Like, there's one bit where I thought, "Oh, that's Coke." I was like, "Oh no, he had a Fanta first," and I said, "That's a Fanta," and that's a Dr Pepper in the background. Then it pans to the table, and you see every single product sold by Coke on the table. I was like, "Okay, it wasn't discreet at all."
Just right in your face.
Yeah, I mean,
it takes you out of the movie.
Yeah. To be honest, I think that's really all there is to talk about.
We've actually spoiled like the whole. We supposed,
there isn't anything to spoil.
But nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, feel free to watch the movie if you just need to kill an hour and 45 minutes.
46.
It is literally kill that period of
time. It is
brutally murder your time.
But it will make time feel like it's lasting longer. So
if you're chilling while watching Netflix and you need it to make it seem like it's longer than 3 minutes, definitely put this film on because 3 minutes will feel like 3 hours. Pro tip for the bedroom.
Yeah, if you want to Netflix and chill, this is perfect because boring movies are perfect for Netflix and chilling.
Yeah.
And this is really boring.
Although I think if I was ever doing that, I'd be like, "Oh, you see that flip? That was so cool."
You wouldn't be like, "Look at the animation. Where's the rest of the frames?"
Yeah. Have you seen the animation? No, of course you didn't because they didn't animate it. Anyway, that brings us to the end of today's episode.
And manga has more frames of the flips than the anime did.
That's true.
What a joke.
Thank you for watching.
Anytime. I'm happy to help. Oh, so
funny. We'll see you in the next episode, which will be 2 minutes for us, and it will be 7 days for you.
Yeah, exactly. So get used to it.
Goodbye.
TTY.
Cookie-chan, 実はね。
俺はロリコンなんだ Fix the old piano when the birds will fall apart. Baby blue buildings high above the crystal grove. Magenta plated terrace with a table and a stone.
Garden golden railings. Just to
on.
frame the pretty stars. Fix the old piano when the birds will fall apart.
Yeah. Hello.
And then and I had to go to that homeless dude.
You went, "Hey, get off."
I was like, "Not giving me any fucking money."
That was recorded. I recorded you saying you weren't giving a homeless guy any fucking money. Cameron abuses homeless people.
That's not what happened.
That's going in the bloopers.
I was very depressed.
That is going in the bloopers.
That's not going in the bloopers.
It is going in the bloopers. That Cameron assaults homeless people.
That's not.